There was a report on the BBC, and it was about a young woman by the name of Emily Lance. Some are saying that's not a real name, but for now, let's go with that. Emily Lance. Um, and she's got a lot of negative publicity because she filmed herself, or at least photographed herself, urinating on the American flag. Yesterday, well, the day before, was the 4th of July, so Independence Day. This has provoked a lot of strong reaction. I checked out her Facebook page, and the BBC had reported that she's been getting death threats and rape threats. Um, Now, I looked at her profile page, and what that seems to entail is a lot of defiance. So she's certainly not contrite about any of the sort of approach she takes. Whether she sees herself as an artist, I don't know. That seems to be the pitch that she's taking. But she's very anti-Trump, very vocal about, yeah, about Trump, and she has made it clear she doesn't really care. Now, let me be very clear about something from the outset. I absolutely, unreservedly condemn rape threats. I absolutely, unreservedly condemn threats of violence. It's not the way to go about things. Having said that, my sympathy for her is very limited. Um, I want to address the issue that her apologists are making that it's just a piece of cloth. I will come to that in a second, but there's something else on her profile that I think some of her defenders who may not be familiar with it should understand. She has a picture of Baron Trump holding the bloodied head of his father. Clearly, this is photoshopped from the Kathy Griffin um, stunt, which was also widely criticized. Now, what's happening here is this woman, Emily Lance, if that is her real name, is obviously now being portrayed as the victim because she's successfully being made to look like an artist who's being targeted by the fiery right wing mob. Um, Generally speaking, I don't like to see people round on an individual, but I really do understand the anger with this one. Um, what she's doing in depicting Baron Trump that way is bullying. You know, targeting the president is one thing, but to target his innocent son is completely beyond the pale. I think any artist or comedian who targets innocent children is a piece of shit, to be quite blunt about it. Um, I said this about Frankie Boyle, I've said it about others. Um, this person obviously thinks that she's some sort of agent provocateur, that she's smart, that her work is original. It's not. It's trash. I mean, it isn't particularly clever. It's just being provocative for the sake of it. Now, there are those who advocate freedom of expression, and there are some who are saying it's just a piece of cloth. I want to tackle that line because it does irritate me. Yes, technically it is a piece of cloth. That's what it's made from. But a national flag is not just a piece of cloth in terms of symbolism. A national flag represents national identity. It represents shared national experience. And yes, it represents sacrifice. Different national flags around the world have different meanings, but pretty much every flag has some sort of sentimental value. So when people say a flag is just a piece of cloth, the funny thing is the same people would not take the same attitude if, for example, a religious book was desecrated. They wouldn't be saying, "Oh, it's just leather and some papers." Um, I would never ever condone violence against someone in these circumstances, and I've been very outspoken, for example, against blasphemy laws. So, by the same understanding, I would never propose that someone be violently attacked or jailed, even for desecrating a flag, but by the same token, I don't think it's a trivial thing. And I've no sympathy with the backlash. I really don't. I mean, I've no sympathy with her in terms of the backlash. What the hell did she expect? The thing is, I think she wanted it. Looking at her profile, I think there is a strong indication there that she is an attention seeker. And to those people who are defending her and saying it's just a piece of cloth, um, I just don't accept that. If I see my national flag, the UK Union flag, being desecrated, I won't lie, it pisses me off because it is an attack on a nation. If you think a flag is just a piece of cloth, then I do question your values because that's the fabric it is made from, that's the material. Yeah, sure. But it's symbolism. That's the point. And it is held dear by millions and millions of people. You know, I greatly dislike certain aspects of Islam, but I'm not going to burn a Quran because it would be fickle and provocative for the sake of it. It would be pointless. It wouldn't be a clever act. Or, well, it wouldn't be clever because it'd be violently targeted by jihadists. But the point I'm making is, as much as I dislike aspects of Islam, I'm not going to offend 1.5 billion people just for the sake of it. I dislike the Chinese government, but I'm not going to burn a Chinese flag because burning the Chinese flag, people wouldn't think, oh, this is a guy who dislikes the Chinese government. This is People would think this is a guy who's anti-China. So desecrating an American flag, I don't see that as an attack on the American government. I see it as an attack on the symbolism of the United States. And I admit that this is something I have mm, sort of adapted to over the years, in the sense that when I was a lot younger, I would have been of the school of thought, oh, what's the big deal? But as you get older, as you learn more about the world, you start to realize that things do have meanings. Sentiment does count for something. And so those who are saying it's just a piece of cloth, no, I think you're wrong. Cloth is what it's made from, but in terms of symbolism, it is not just a piece of cloth. Um, in terms of the free speech argument, well, freedom of speech basically should give people the right not to be persecuted by a government. It should give people the right to express their conscience without threat of violence. But it has never been about not then facing consequences for what you say. And if we extend this action, desecrating a flag, to freedom of expression, then you can't rationally say that, oh, well, how dare there be any sort of backlash? You can't expect people to be then quiet and not voice anger when they're genuinely, sincerely offended and upset about it. I'm not even American and I felt irritated by it. Um, I think it's just a crude, disgusting thing to do. If she doesn't like President Trump, that's absolutely legitimate. Join protests against him, campaign for the Democrats, whatever. But I think desecrating a flag is not a swipe at Trump. It's a swipe at the collective sacrifice of tens of thousands of American soldiers over the years. So I really don't see flag desecration as a small thing. Should it be illegal? That's a bit of a grey area. I don't know what the situation is in the UK, and I'm not sure what the situation is in the US regarding that. As far as I know, in the US, it's not prohibited, and as far as I know, in the UK, it's not prohibited. But if you burn a British flag, if you urinate on a British flag, do not be surprised when people who care about their country get pissed off about it. And likewise with our American cousins or our Canadian cousins or any other country on earth. You know, um, there are certain times when the emotional response might warrant it. If your country is invaded by another country, and your countrymen and countrywomen have been killed by the invading forces of that country, then desecrating the flag of that country might be understandable. But doing it just to protest against the government, I think, is very misguided. I think all it does is polarize people. Um, because her little stunt isn't, doing anything for the anti-Trump cause. Because the United States has existed a lot longer than Donald Trump. So I think it is misguided at best and downright crude at worst. And if you think the whole flag desecrating thing is completely fine, how do you justify targeting Donald Trump's young son? I mean, to me, attacking a child is beyond the pale. And it's not that Barron Trump's going to see that, but I just think that's beyond the pale. Now, this young woman has shown arrogance. She doesn't care. Her profile is completely full of defiance. Her critics would say she's a great warrior for free speech and all the rest of it. I don't think she is. I think she's an attention seeker. I don't think she's particularly original. And I think that the argument about flags just being a piece of cloth, I'm sorry, but it's just plain wrong. If that is what you feel, then I do question your values. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. And just to summarize, I don't condone the death threats at all. Of course, that is far too extreme a reaction. Um, but I will always support the right for people to show anger in any circumstance. The caveat is not extending that to violence or threats or bullying. But I do understand why people are angry over this. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts.